Is Firefox really worth using over Chrome? I'm a longtime Chrome user, and I tested the speed, features, and privacy of Firefox to see if it can take the crown of the best web browser. Chrome currently holds over 60% of the desktop browser market share, so is Firefox even capable of competing? There's no sugarcoating it, Firefox is a dying browser. It once held over 32% of the desktop market share back in 2009, but today it has just 6%. And for the first time ever, Opera is about to pass it in market share. But there's something special about Firefox. It's one of the only web browsers left that does not use Chromium. We'll talk more about that later, but first, let's compare the speed and performance between these two browsers. In real-world day-to-day usage, Firefox feels significantly zippier than Chrome. And that makes a lot of sense given how bloated Google Chrome is. It's long had a reputation of being a RAM hog and a battery hog. While there's not a great way to scientifically compare the speed of these two browsers, I was able to run a few tests to gauge their back-end performance. When I ran browserbench.org, Chrome won in the Jetstream and MotionMark tests, but Firefox absolutely smoked Chrome in the speedometer test. The speedometer test aims to measure the responsiveness of web applications, and maybe that's why Firefox felt more capable in my usage. But as always with any non-Chromium browser, Firefox sometimes has trouble displaying pages properly. Sometimes pages just seem broken, and when I load the same page in Chrome, it loads perfectly. This is largely because Chrome has such a huge market share, so web developers spend their time optimizing their websites for Chrome and the other web browsers that utilize Chromium. This just means that developers often have an incentive to focus their efforts on optimizing their sites for Chrome, and Firefox takes a back seat. Once you're past the occasional reliability quirks, Firefox is a pretty vanilla experience. The interface is one of the first things you notice when using a new web browser, and Firefox's interface is nearly identical to Chrome. Both browsers sync your activity with a Google or Mozilla account, both browsers offer a built-in password manager, and both browsers have form autofilling. Unfortunately, one of the areas where Firefox really falls flat is with the profiles feature. While it is possible to have different profiles, you have to go to About:"Profiles in your browser bar to select a profile, and it's just an overly clunky and complicated process to switch between profiles. I've talked about Firefox's clunky implementation of profiles in the past, and it seems that Mozilla hasn't made any attempts to improve it. In Chrome, it's easy to just click your profile and switch accounts, or even start using a guest profile. Some Firefox users suggest creating desktop shortcuts for each profile, and you can definitely take advantage of tricks like this to make management easier, but that's still no excuse for how clunky this feature is to begin with. Chrome, Brave, Edge, and even Safari are making profiles easy to use, and it's time for Firefox to catch up. Chrome and other browsers are also experimenting with new AI tools to make web browsing a smoother experience. Chrome lets you open this Google tab to make quick searches related to the page, use Google Lens to identify objects on the page, or even summarize the content of the page using generative AI. This feature is in beta, and you can do similar things using the free version of ChatGPT in Firefox, but the rise of AI in web browsers is one of the more useful innovations we've seen in recent years, and I have a feeling it's not at the top of Mozilla's list to implement. Mozilla remains focused on their commitment to user privacy in Firefox. It's features like a built-in tracker blocker, tab containers, and the Quantum browser engine that really paint this picture. Tab containers are pretty neat. You can isolate any tab or group of tabs to its own sandbox browsing session with its own set of cookies that can't be accessed by sites outside of the container. This gives you the advantage of being able to sign into multiple accounts on the same site in the same browsing profile. You can also use tab containers to browse social sites like Facebook and prevent them from using cookies to track you across your other browsing activity. Firefox is built on Gecko and Quantum, which are rendering and browser engines developed by Mozilla. Gecko is an open source project, but Quantum is an extra layer on top of Gecko that provides numerous proprietary improvements. In English, this means that Mozilla is using its own code to power the backend of Firefox, where Chrome and other browsers are built on Chromium, which is an open source browser engine created by Google. It's no secret that Google is a data company. They make their money by collecting user data and using it to target ads. And that's exactly why we don't see features like a built-in tracker blocker, tab containers, and other privacy features in Chrome. So the fact that Firefox is using its own custom web engine means there is no chance Google is collecting your user data from your browsing activity alone. And yes, I'm fully aware that Google and other data companies still have ways of tracking you regardless of which browser you use. I'm just saying that Google at least can't see your literal browsing history if you're using Firefox. Still, some users don't trust Mozilla to protect their user data, pointing to things like a partnership between Mozilla and Meta in 2022. This is a bit ironic, and I can totally understand why some users are weary of trusting Mozilla when they're making moves like this. The privacy debate ultimately boils down to which company you trust most with your data. Personally, I do think that Mozilla is more trustworthy in handling user data than Google, but I know both companies have their issues. Up to this point, it seems like there's mostly upside to using Firefox instead of Chrome. But one of my biggest sticking points when evaluating Chrome alternatives is browser extensions. The Chrome Web Store is the #1 source for browser extensions, with over 188,000 items. All of my favorite extensions like 1Password, Honey, Rakuten, Grammarly, TubeBuddy, and vidIQ are all available in the Chrome Web Store. All of the extensions I just mentioned are also available on Firefox, but the add-on database has closer to 30,000 items, significantly less than the Chrome Web Store. While the most popular extensions are available in both browsers, you're inevitably going to find some extensions that just aren't available on Firefox. So while Chrome remains the more polished browser, I honestly think Firefox is catching up. This is the most complete Firefox has ever felt compared to my prior testing. However, the lack of an intuitive way to switch between the profiles is the main thing I miss in my testing. I use profiles all the time in my day-to-day testing, so I hope to see Firefox improve this in a future update. But in the end, if I had to pick between Chrome and Firefox, I would use Firefox. It feels faster, it's got all the extensions I need, and it has a greater emphasis on privacy. But there's one thing I failed to mention in this video. I don't use Chrome at all anymore. In fact, I've been using Brave for well over a year now. And if you're curious how Brave stands up against Firefox, you can check out that video here.